Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. You are here with us on youtube.com, facebook.com, and mixlr.com, all / Wake Up Call DT. Of course, you're on the homepage of wakeupcalldt.com where the MixLR feed is streaming there every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time. And you're also with us on Facebook on facebook.com / live now DT as well. With that being said, this gentleman is no stranger to the broadcast. It's been a minute, though. Jake Zembiec here with us from Aquinas Institute out of Rochester, New York. And Jake is someone I got to follow through his recruitment into his time and ultimately committing to Penn State and heading off there as a quarterback on their roster. And so I'm happy to have Jake here to tell his story, his unique journey. And as always, great to have a familiar face here. And we'll never forget how Dad, would always connect. Whenever we would talk, I'd always get a nice message from Dad. So happy to have you here, Jake. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a very long time.
Yeah, it has been. So it's been a bunch of years here. I want to go back to your recruiting process and just what your takeaways were. We were talking about it off the air that, there was a little sniff of something from Syracuse. And then when the staff changed, nothing. Coming from Rochester, was that something that you had hoped for? Because I talked to kids here in Central and Upstate New York, or Buffalo or Rochester. Was Syracuse a team that you wanted to hear from back then?
When I was going through the process, honestly, I followed more NFL as a young guy than college. I didn't really get into college until I started getting recruited, and I kind of had to learn about it.
Yeah.
And that was just because, NFL has bigger name guys and it's kind of more in your face than college. So I wouldn't say there was ever like a pull towards Cuse. No, I didn't have anything against them, just like I didn't have anything against UB or anyone else. But as I started to get recruited more and more, seeing the bigger schools at the time, schools like Penn State and other schools like that who were ranked higher and all those things. Obviously, I saw that those types of schools were interested in me, so I wanted to go play there at the highest level I could.
And we look back on your recruitment, to go back into it, who were some of those besides Penn State, some of those notable schools that had reached out to you, offered you, looked at giving you an opportunity to come play for them?
Yeah, so my top three ended up being Penn State, Michigan State, and Oklahoma State. Proximity ended up being one of the biggest factors just for my family to be able to come to games and visit and stuff like that. But so those are my top three there. But then I took visits to other places. I had offers from, Iowa, Nebraska, places like that. I think it ended up being around 15 or 16 offers.
And looking back on that, a lot of that in the Big Ten, the Big Ten given a lot of respect. And the Big Ten has come into the state of New York before and pulled players from different positions. What did it mean to you? I mean, Big Ten football obviously has made its way into the college football playoff. Big Ten football has been well respected. A lot of the work in the trenches. We've had some quarterbacks come through the Big Ten, obviously, that have found their way to the NFL. So when you were getting these offers and you saw a lot of these Big Ten schools, what did that say to you? What did it mean to you to have that feather in your cap that the Big Ten, a very notable conference, was looking at you and offering you?
Yeah. Again, I honestly, going through the process, I couldn't have told you all the teams in the Big Ten just because I didn't follow college football at all. So I guess looking back now, it's like, I feel more accomplished and sort of happy with the way that went. And I'm like, wow, these big time schools were looking at me. That's really cool. Back then and always, I guess Alabama is the top dog and, Georgia. So I know those schools were sending me mail and stuff. They didn't offer me, but I knew those schools were like the big dogs. But other than that, I really didn't have a clue. And I was like in the learning process kind of as I was getting thrown into it. But looking back at it, it's really cool that those schools thought highly of me from New York, which isn't historically a great football state.
Why do you think, speaking here with Jake Zembiec, played quarterback at Aquinas Institute in Rochester, New York, and eventually went to Penn State? Why do you feel that these notable colleges and universities from around the country, the 15 offers, as you mentioned, what was it about your game that you feel was sticking out to them? Why do you think you were so highly recruited?
I think, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I do a lot of my own quarterback training and stuff now. And everyone wants the secret to this and the secret to getting recruited. First and foremost, you have to be pretty damn good to get recruited. And then the rest of it is kind of like, knowing the tricks and tips to get recruited better than the next guy. But you got to be really good to start, at least. But for me, my family, particularly my dad, he did everything for me. He was my quarterback coach. I never went private lessons for anything. He did all my recruiting stuff like you talked about. He was all over the social media and the emails and everything like that. So he took the stress off me and let me just kind of play. And he was really good about that. I had really good support at my high school. And then, whatever coaches came by or whatever camps I went to, I showed up and performed, did everything that they were hoping I would. And that was really the biggest thing for me. And as a high school kid, I felt that I had a really good work ethic and focus. A lot of times it's hard to not do what your friends are doing all the time, because it's hard to understand that maybe I can't go hang out today because it's important that I stay on this workout schedule, or, go throw. Yeah. It's hard to develop those habits as a young guy. And it was hard for me because I still had those wants at times. I'm like, well, I would love to hang out with my friends instead of work out today, but I understand.
Yeah, and having to, put in that work and give that effort and put it upon yourself. Did you always have personal responsibility? Do you feel like, when student athletes are watching this right now in football or any sport, and hearing from you who made it to Penn State, some people don't have personal responsibility, right? Some people don't have that get up and go. Some, they need someone to kind of make them do it or push them to do it or give them an incentive. What would you say to the student athletes out there about not needing an incentive, or the incentive being your dream? That if you want it, you got to go get it, because we live in a world where there's a significant amount of people that sit on couches and think that someone's going to knock on the door and hand them money. So what would you say to them?
Yeah. Again, going back to the coaching and training I do now, I talk to the parents a lot about, because, quarterback dads are traditionally the most hardcore sport parents there are. And I tell them, your kid has to love playing. Even you can have him go to whatever camp he wants, but just make sure you're not burning him out. It's got to be coming from him. They got to genuinely love playing, because that's the only way you're going to get by in college. It's way too much of a job and responsibility to just go out there and be good and hope that that's going to carry you through and be enough.
And Jake, there's a lot of different pieces that we can get into in this conversation. I look forward to all of that, but I got to ask you about a couple things. One of them being the very clear mustache that you rocked at Penn State, and the other thing is the drip. I'm looking at these pictures as we're talking here in the studio, and you had some very expensive, heavy looking materials on yourself. What created, is it something that you thought, was it like, hey, this is just a joke, whatever? Was it, hey, I want to be larger than life? Was it, if I can't be on the field, I want to still show my personality? What led to you becoming a very unique piece of Penn State?
Yeah, I don't know that guy you're talking about. That's my alter ego. He only came out on game days, but
okay.
That is my true personality. Just goofy, weird, like to have fun. And it ended up getting way more attention than I ever planned on it getting, and made for my time as a not player really fun. But my biggest thing was always, like, I didn't want to be a distraction to the team. So if at any point, the coaches were like, hey, we think this is too much, I would have had no problem stopping. But it kept getting more and more attention. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I had a good mustache. I don't know if it'll ever get back to that point. I had a diet every Friday night before games to make sure that it was popping.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the chains that look very, were these real? Was this real, or was this fake, the chains that you had around you?
We had a mixture.
Okay.
I I mean, they were definitely not all real, but some of them.
Okay. Do you have a favorite?
I do have a favorite. I'm not in Rochester right now, so I don't have any of them with me, but the Penn State logo one is my favorite. I assume it's probably everyone's favorite who's seen it because it's pretty big and pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, I'll save those forever. I probably will never wear them again, but it's a cool memory of that time in my life.
You said it was your alter ego. Did your alter ego have a name?
Not for me. I wouldn't be one to name myself, but
Okay.
people were calling it Drip Too Hard University, which kind
Yeah.
of caught on. It was really cool. And then my favorite moment was Halloween night in State College. Obviously, everyone dresses up. There was at least 100 people who dressed up as me and tagged me on Twitter and whatnot. And I was studying Halloween night because I'm fun. And I went out and was like riding on the blue loop, whatever, around campus, and I saw people dressed as me, and it was like the Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other and they're like, you're me sort of thing, which is cool.
You know, it seems like you took and I mention it because, taking a negative and turning it into a positive in 2018, accepting a medical scholarship and retiring from football. Did you create this and not create it because you said it's your personality? I mean, it's who you are. Did because you were connected to Penn State, because you wanted to be out there, because you wanted to be a part of this community, a part of this team, and obviously enjoy your time at the university, did this drip too hard university thing come out of that, out of the, okay, you know what, I'm having something taken away from me that's beyond my control, so what's in my control is to still be a part of it? I mean, it's amazing that if you were out there as a starting quarterback, right, and you did the things you needed to do, College Game Day would talk to you, and there would be different interviews and different things going on, and you and I could be talking about your game last week against Michigan State or Michigan or whatever it may be, Wisconsin. So when that's taken away from you beyond your control, where you thought you would be doing these interviews, being in these games, being in big time postseason matchups and whatnot and rivalries, when that gets taken away and you have no control over it, did this persona come out of the fact of, hey, you know what? I still want to be remembered. I still want to have a part of Penn State history. I don't want to fade off into the background because I had to take a medical scholarship. Speak to that a little bit.
I would say that was not my thought process. That's not really my sort of personality, I wouldn't say. Now looking back at it, it is cool to know that that'll be something that people will remember forever, especially people who were, freshman, junior, senior at the time, because of the way it blew up. But that was never my goal as far as trying to like keep my name relevant there. Obviously, I understand, the starting quarterback is going to get a lot more attention than the medically redshirted guy who never played. And I would have people ask me crazy questions like, do you have any, jealousy of Sean Clifford because he came in and younger than you and now he's starting, which is just like, to me, it's outrageous because the answer is no. And I don't even think that way. But again, it was just something I did for fun. It started as just some guy forgot to take off his chain right before the game. He was like, hey, man, can you hold this? I wore it instead of put it in my pocket and then took off from there.
And for you looking back on this time, in 2018 to accept the medical scholarship and retire from football, I mean, obviously that was never the plan. Bring me into everything that happened that led up to that moment from your point of view. I think there's always people that like to speak on what happened and give a timeline, but they're not you. So I'd love to hear it from you.
Yeah, there are definitely people who will write my story for me. That's for sure. And the most surprising part about that is I was very happy with the decision I made. It was a relief, and it was a pretty easy decision by the time it came. So I had been dealing with a shoulder injury for 4 years at that point. Started in high school, didn't get better during college. I rehabbed or worked with their staff at Penn State. Nothing but great things to say about them. They tried their best, but partially me knowing that if I sit out too much, I'm obviously going to fall down the depth chart. I kept pushing myself, whatnot, and it just never healed the way I wanted it to. got surgery on it, played in a spring game in 2017, actually did pretty well considering we were going up against the starting defense. But still just it wasn't me. And I knew that I was still in pain and I wasn't going to ever be as good as I was or needed to be to play as good as Trace or Sean or those guys. So a culmination of that and just years of playing with pain, it kind of takes your heart out of it. It became a really easy decision for me. In addition to the fact that they were telling me that not only could I still be around the team if I wanted to, but Coach Ronnie, the OC at the time, and Coach Franklin said, hey, you've been in our system for 2 years now. We know you know the playbook. We want you to have an active role. We want you to still travel with us. And so that made me feel like I was still giving some value and sort of earning my scholarship, so to speak, because I did feel a little guilty in that aspect, that they had these expectations for me, just like other people did, and I didn't fulfill them. But I felt like in the end, I was still able to give back and have a positive impact on the program.
Here with Jake Zembiec on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, Penn State quarterback, alum. For you, Jake, you said a lot of things there, and it makes you go down a bunch of different roads here. You played in the blue-white game after you had surgery. You had originally said, now, when you tore your labrum as a junior in high school at Aquinas Institute, was that when things started to go wrong, or were you feeling pain before you were a junior in high school?
No, it was sort of a wear and tear situation. So, and again, I wouldn't change anything that I did. I've had this talk with, people before, my dad before. I was going to all these camps, Elite 11, back-to-back weekends, flying out to here, there, everywhere.
Yeah.
Taking a beating on my shoulder. But, without those camps, I'm not getting recruited. I'm not getting my name out of New York State.
Yeah.
Probably not getting an offer from the Penn States and schools like that. So wouldn't change any of that. Could have gotten surgery going into my senior year of high school. I didn't want to miss my senior year of high school. Felt that was really important for me socially and for, statistically and getting recruited and stuff like that. And then it just really never came around at Penn State. And again, I loved my time there in every other possible facet other than my right shoulder.
Yeah. Did you, when you look back on it and there was a, hey, you know what, I don't want to get surgery right now. Like, I want it. Was there a notion that it could heal or, it could naturally, there's something that you could do? Were you hoping that you wouldn't have to go through surgery? Because I know eventually you did, but how were you looking at it? Because I know you said, I don't want to miss my senior year. But do you ever, how did you see it? Was there a chance that it could have healed on its own? And was that what you were leaning on?
Yeah. So funny enough, I'm actually studying to be a physical therapist right now. So big believer in doing physical therapy and healing that way. But as a college football player, it's tough to get enough adequate rest to really recover. And throwing a football is just not a natural motion for your shoulder. So it really beats up on your shoulder, especially when you add that up over 10 years of throwing and, just not resting and not recovering to my fullest. But I gave it my best shot at rehab. I never wanted to miss any time from practice or stuff like that, just because naturally other guys are getting out there and getting noticed while you're not. But it got so bad that it was affecting my sleep, my day-to-day happiness outside of football. Got to the point where I was throwing and it was making me like nauseous. So at that point I knew what the right move was.
Do you look back and have any regrets that you didn't do the surgery sooner and think back and think, oh, well, if I did it my senior year, then I could have played in college. It would have been okay. Wouldn't have been through so much pain. Do you look back and wish that you took a different when the fork split in the road? Do you wish you went the other way?
So not sure if you remember this from high school, but my junior year, I broke my wrist and there was a whole debacle about that. So I would have missed my junior year and senior year, which is just, it's tough to do that and still get recruited and still have a high school career that you want to be proud of and remember forever. So again, I'm happy the way I did it and the way I handle it, and my shoulder feels great now. So, um, as far as the long-term lens,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be in the NFL making millions, but at least I have a good shoulder that doesn't keep me up at night.
Well, and the thing is, going the physical therapy route and the different things that you're doing and studying now, there's an opportunity for you to make millions. There is an opportunity for you to, more importantly, help other people in your position. And how do you, I mean, is that what led you to what you're studying now and what you're doing now? Is you're still a student and still, you know, growing through your academic side of things? Is that you look to pay it forward, you look to help people out that might be in your situation or in a different situation, be it through athletics or just in life in general? Is that your hope, that what you've gone through, you're hoping to help somebody get through what they're going through, maybe even make it better, help them to get healthy? I mean, does your field of work that you're looking to go into have something to do with your life and what you've already been through?
Yeah, through the process, I gained a lot of respect for the physical therapists, and I kind of admired and was interested in what they did, as far as helping me out. And yeah, I want to work in athletics. That's my goal here. So just to be around that environment of athletics and highly competitive, all that stuff, but also to help people come back from injury when they're at their lowest and get back to performing at a high level. All those things are really appealing to me. Just to stay around that environment in general and work with athletes would be really cool.
How do you keep your mental health during everything that you went through?
Yeah, I'm honestly a pretty easygoing, happy person. um, there's not a lot that really brings me down. When it was all going on, I still realized how lucky I was to be at Penn State
Yeah.
as a student and a football player. Just being there alone was cool, but to be on the football team and to be go to practice every day, super cool. Things did get hard when the pain started to get really bad and it would never go away. That did suck, but even then, I knew that I had an option to get surgery and do those things, and just really appreciative for the staff keeping me on scholarship, accepting me even though I couldn't play anymore, and all those sorts of things. So I'll always owe it to those guys.
You played in the blue and white game. Like you said, you felt like you played well. That number 7 jersey, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think just the Penn State jersey alone, I have a bunch of them hanging up, and all the pictures I got from teammates and the chains. It just reminds me of that time in my life. Probably won't ever be as good as that again. And we talked about that a lot while I was there. Coach Franklin would always say, "You'll be trying to get into a locker room for the rest of your life because there's no atmosphere like that." And I definitely felt that every game my senior year, especially as we got closer to the end. I was like, wow, this is not going to be, my life is going to be a lot different after this. And it has been. But so those are just the memories that we hang on to, and it reminds me of what a good time it was.
You mentioned the staff a few times here, that head coach James Franklin and the staff didn't have to keep you, right? You were taking a scholarship. They could have given it to somebody else who could go out there and play. You retire from football, you take a medical scholarship, they let you stay there. They say, hey, be a part of the team. We want you to be here. You know the playbook. We want you to be active. You got recruited by James Franklin and the crew, and something that they said, did, or both made you want to come to Penn State. Then when everything goes wrong, they come to you and say, we want to keep you here. What did it mean to you that the staff of those 15 offers, the staff that you said yes to, still said yes to you after your injury?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of twofold. I felt obviously really thankful, and appreciative that they trusted in me still, and that they were going to give me that opportunity to be with them and to travel with them. And then on the other side of that, I had felt like I was still being able to give back something because I was in those, 2-hour meetings before practice and long practices every day. So I had absorbed all that stuff. and just felt like I was at a point where I knew the information as good as anyone up here. I just couldn't produce on the field the way I once was able to. So that was one of the things that I really wanted to make sure I could do, was stay around the team. And there was no problem from them when that happened, and everyone was really supportive of it, and there was no rush or anything like that. It was really a smooth process. And yeah, I just keep saying that I'm thankful for them, the way that they handled that.
And did that give you peace that you had made the right decision? I mean, looking back on your recruitment and seeing every school and everything that everybody said to you and whatnot, and then you ultimately choosing Penn State when they said, "Hey, we want you to stay here. We're going to honor your scholarship. You get your education. We're going to take care of you, and you be here and you be a part of this." What type of peace did that give you? And did that really make you feel like James Franklin was worth his word, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think that proved that they were the same guys that they said they were during the recruiting process. They're going to be, what would he say? He would say this is a lifetime commitment or something, not just a 4-year commitment. So he was making sure that I was going to be happy forever. After I took my medical scholarship, they were really understanding that, well, now that I know football's over, I want to go and do something else. I want to go and get my doctorate in physical therapy. So they understood that I needed to get these internship hours here. So if I needed to miss a few practices or whatever, they were really lenient about that. So just the fact that they kept their word about everything, and even just the way they treated me didn't change, um, made that transition a lot easier. And that's hard for other people. I don't want to call them fans because I don't like talking about myself in that term, but people who are rooting for me are like, how could you have been happier or still been happy after you quit playing football? I'm like, well, just being around a Division I football team is amazing, but a lot of people don't get to experiencing that and don't understand.
That coming here from Jake Zembiec here with us, a Penn State alum there on the crew on the Nittany Lions football program, and coming from Aquinas Institute in Rochester, here with us on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. So you stay on staff and you get to be a part of it. You get to travel with the team. And like you said, you get to do things that nobody gets to do, right? You get to be around the team. You know the playbook. You get to talk with the guys. So what were your jobs? What were your roles? What did you get to do? Were you really helping out the quarterbacks and getting to be a piece of that room? What was the life of Jake Zembiec post playing and still being connected to the program?
Yeah, so I would help out the younger guys a lot, just with sort of, this is what route you have on this play. Quarterbacks, this is what you're looking for. Whoever Cliff would come off the field, Sean Clifford, what'd you see there, sort of thing, or the backup quarterbacks bounce ideas off each other, sort of just another set of eyes for the QB coach. And then I also help with sort of our signal production, so our offensive signals. I help with that, which is obviously a huge role in the offense. Can't get into that too much because it's top secret classified information, but
Yeah.
Obviously a really big role there, helping the whole production on game day. And that just doesn't happen on game day. That's every day of practice, every day in meetings, making sure everyone's on the same page. It's basically like our own sign language for Penn State's offense.
Yeah, and having that inside piece to it and everything that you get to do in that respect, just to speak on maybe what you've loved about it over time, and just the timeline of when you started to help out on the coaching staff to where we are today, just what it's all looked like from when you started to now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the further I got into my years at Penn State, starting all the way from high school when I started to get recruited, I think a big transition for me was when I stopped playing. I just became like so much more grateful for what I had. And not even because it was taken away from me, just because when I took a medical, everything kind of slowed down and I was able to return to my normal self and sort of reevaluate where I was at, and just be like extra grateful for being able to see, the same guys every day that I really like and hang out with those guys, and just thankful for being around the coaches and realize that they stay at the facility for 20 hours a day, but, are still super energized to see us every day and have the same energy and all those sorts of things. I just had a totally different shift in my perspective and the way I was seeing everything.
So bring me into what life is like today. I know you wanted to talk about what you're into now and staying with the sport of football and different things that you do. So I'd love to share with everybody that's watching and listening what the world of Jake Zembiec looks like right now.
Yeah, well, you are actually, if I zoom out a little bit, you're looking at it here. I was studying for the past 4 hours for my next test coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I'm a grad student getting my doctorate in physical therapy here at University of Buffalo. 3-year program, so 7 years of college, more than I planned to. Again, it's not as glamorous as the NFL, but hopefully I'm going to work my way up into the NFL in a different role here. And then the other thing that's really cool, staying on the football page, I know I brought this up, but I started my own quarterback training camp, company, business, whatever you want to call it, during quarantine. Started off as just an idea, mainly because I was bored, and it really blew up in Rochester. I started with a few kids, ended up probably training over 50 kids, who I'd work with, some group sessions, some individual sessions. And I'm starting to gain a little bit of traction here in Buffalo too, which is really cool. Taking advantage of my name, image, and likeness, if you will, before I get too old and removed here in Rochester. But it's been really fun to sort of pay it back to Rochester. I know a lot of these young guys looked up to me when I was going through that process. So to be able to help those guys out and give them realistic advice, kind of like I talked about earlier. You have to be good at football to get recruited. That's number one. Those sorts of things that you're not going to hear from the average guy who's just out there to make money or whatever. Somebody who's actually been through the process. You don't get a lot of that in Rochester. I think it's really valuable for the youth here. And I'm working with a bunch of college guys too. So it's very rewarding for me to see those guys having success. And I feel like my old dreams of playing in the NFL kind of going through those guys at the moment. So.
Well, and that's the thing, like you said, having this camp, this training and whatnot. I mean, are you really looking for this to take off and become something, like you said, because, you're there in Rochester and you have a name in Rochester and you did a lot of great things there at Aquinas Institute and whatnot, and, build your roots and, it, I know it, upstate New York, we're a different breed, right? We're blue collar people. We're hardworking people. We remember the good ones. And if somebody does you wrong once, we may never talk to them again. That's how the blue collar is. So, I mean, do you see this becoming a real thing? And I mean, I can see a bonding of the two. You talk about business, you got physical therapy, understanding the rehab part and what you need to do with your body. And that can help you when you're training to say, hey, we're going to train, but we're not going to do this for this long because we don't want to put an undue overuse of work on the shoulder, because you know what that's been through. So your physical training or physical therapy can help your training can help your physical therapy. So is your hope to put a business together that has, that's called, that we have whatever we want to call it, but, Zembiec's Corner, however you want to have it to be, or, swag, whatever you want it to be, but but to have, this business, essentially this business model where you have the physical therapy, the rehab, the training, and somebody can come to you from high school, from, prep school, from college or whatnot, and that you can train them even the NFL, and they can come to you and they can train with you to rehab their bodies. They can train with you to get ready for the draft. They can train with you as they're trying to get more tape out there. I mean, is this a business model? Am I speaking some truth here? Is there more to it, less to it? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been thought about that. And right now, the quarterback training aspect of it is kind of on the back burner, just because I'm focused on, getting this degree first and whatnot. But I definitely want to continue the training. Obviously, physical therapy is going to be my career. That's my career plan. But my plan is at the very least to improve on my quarterback training and make it a real business, hold summer camps that are a little bit more organized, have a staff, bring in my friends that have bigger names than I do. And ultimately, when I'm settled down in a career and learn anything about business, maybe I can open my own business and have some sort of joint practice like you were mentioning. But unfortunately, I'm still a student, so I'm trying to get through this first.
Yeah, and obviously you have to go through different pieces and whatnot to put it all together. But like you said, in your own unique way, you're building a road. And I think the big conversation here is, be it an injury or whatever it may be. Listen, football ends playing wise for everybody that plays the sport, right? And not everybody's Tom Brady. That's why he's an enigma. There's the reality that you could make it to the NFL in 2022, and in 2024 you're done.
Right.
So at some point you're going to be done. And even if you played, let's say 15 years, that makes you 36. And so at 36 years old, you're looking for a new job. So, I think in your world, it's kind of like, instead of going through all of that and playing at Penn State and then going to the NFL and whatnot, potentially, you're now past all of that. And at a younger age, building up, what is my next step? What's going to be my next place where you can still connect and you can help out kids and you can help out, teenagers, and you can help out people in college, people in high school, you can help out pros. And ultimately, you can help out people when they're done playing for the USFL or the XFL or the CFL or the NFL, whatever it may be. You can help them when everything's all said and done, to keep their body healthy, to rehab themselves, and to do the things they need to do. So with all, the reality of it all is you've essentially been building at a very young age a business model that's going to keep you connected to the sport you love, keep your body healthy, and help you to pay it forward.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with what you're saying there. I would say that I wouldn't have hated playing in the NFL for a few years and having a little bit of a cushion in the bank account. That wouldn't have been terrible. But no, I definitely, as I was talking about, keeping it real with the guys that I train. And I'm not somebody who talks about myself a lot, but I do like to keep it realistic with these guys, and they want to know, what they have to do. And I tell them there hasn't been many guys coming out of New York who had as good of a shot to make it big and make it to the NFL as I did. And I didn't. So what was my backup plan?
Yeah.
I was somebody who had one, and I'm going on continuing education and all these things. I had no plans of quitting football halfway through college, going into Penn State, obviously, but that's why you got to make sure you have these backup plans. It's something real that people talk about. And it's like, well, yeah, that will never happen to me, sort of thing, but it does. And what are you going to do?
So what would be your advice to the people out there of, like you said, having that backup plan, having something set and ready to go? There's, I can walk into a room, and I've asked people before, who wants to be a professional athlete, be it basketball, football, whatever. And everybody raises their hand, and I say, okay, there's 14 of you. Let's say at best one of you makes it. What are the other 13 of you going to do?
Right.
And the one of you that did make it, what are you going to do 5 years later? So what is your advice, having gone through it, having lived it, and living it right now? What would you say to people about being prepared and having a backup to your backup plan? Because life does not ever go 100% the way we expect.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is just make sure you're having fun and actually enjoying what you're doing. Don't get caught in a repeated cycle of just doing something because it's what you do or somebody else's expectations are telling you to do it. And then, have a backup plan. I guess I don't want to say hope for the worst, because that isn't what I did, but be passionate about something other than, what you're great at. Have hobbies outside of sport, have hobbies outside of going to work every day, that sort of thing. And I think that's what's keeping me interested in physical therapy. Obviously working every day for the rest of my life doesn't sound like the coolest thing ever, but my dream is to go be around athletes and do all that sort of stuff, so it stays fun and meaningful to me, as opposed to just getting caught in this sort of, Groundhog Day scenario, which I think I'm setting myself up for pretty well right now.
And for you to look back on, your time, obviously, at Penn State, and your opportunity to be at one of the most notable programs in the history of mankind, how would you describe to me a game day? I've been in different parts of the country. I've been in different places. One of the places that I have not been to yet that I would like to go to is to Penn State to be immersed in the game. So for someone who has not been there, describe to me, help me to feel and see and understand what Penn State football is.
So there is a lot of people there. That's number one. I actually got to go back to a game as a fan this past year for the whiteout. I think I really took it all in more then than ever, because I didn't have any responsibilities other than to cheer. So I was able to be on the field like I used to be, but now I took a second to look around and be like, wow, all these people were here to watch who was on the team when I played. My best friend, whoever it was, Ryan Bates. All these people are here to watch Ryan Bates. Like, he's just Ryan Bates. He's, we hang out and play video games.
Yeah.
It's just so funny. And people are so passionate about going to watch Penn State football, and you don't really realize it while you're there. You take it for granted, people come and watch the football games, but then you go back as an alum and you feel like an old person who doesn't play sports anymore. And you're like, wow, it was pretty cool. Those people all came out for us.
And what makes it so different? Like, what is it about it? Are there traditions, things that happen? Like, as a player, is there something that happens every single game day, something with a statue or a walk or something that you do? Like, what makes Penn State in your opinion, having lived it?
So I mean, we do have those traditions. I think that's pretty standard everywhere you go. Obviously they're different. We have our blue bus that would ride in on a special route before game day, and we would walk in through all the fans. But I think the one thing about Penn State, like especially going to the University at Buffalo right now, and I like it here, but people go to Penn State because it's their dream school.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to Penn State because they want to get season tickets to the football game. People don't go to UB because they want to go to the football games or because it was their dream school. So it's just different. Like, people love being there. People come back for the rest of their lives to go there. So it's just different. It's like a cult, which I've heard it described as before, and I'd have to agree. I only wear Penn State clothing to school and around. Even when I go to my internships, my polos are Penn State. So I'm a example A of a Penn State cult member, and I always will be. So it's just different in that aspect, that everyone loves it and wants to be there and is all rooting towards the same thing.
Are you surprised that James Franklin is still there? He's one of those coaches that, and I always say I'm media by badge, but not by who I am, because I'm a different type of human being. I like telling the truth. I like building relationships. I like you getting to tell your story, and I like not changing your words around. And that's a rarity, I feel, when I'm sitting in the room of the media, and they're always looking for angles, and I'm looking to build relationships with people. In that respect, James Franklin's the name that comes up, and he's going to go here and he's going to go there. And this school offered him, and this school did this and this did that. And, people are prognosticating, but he's still at Penn State. So did you ever envision that he was leaving and being coached by him, and to have him keep you there even when he didn't have to? Do you feel like James Franklin is there in the cult? Is he a Penn Stater? Is this a real thing? Is this, a coach that really has dug his roots there, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, he brought the program back from, the darkest times a football team has ever faced at Penn State. and he brought him back to bowl game every year, top 2 finish, or we were up to top 2 my freshman year. So he's proven himself, and I know he had a great relationship, and so did all of us with the athletic director there, who unfortunately just retired. But everybody there in administration, working together, was awesome, all pulling the weight in the same direction. And I think and now I don't really know any other head coaches on a personal level like I know him, but his consistency with the way that he would come to practice every day and approach it allowed him to be successful there. Did not matter what was going on. You were expected to do the same things every day, be the same person, work harder every day. And if you didn't play, and you heard about it. So I think he will be there for a while. And a lot of times what happens is coaches will make a move from, quarterback coach to offensive coordinator at a smaller school, or head coach at a smaller school and then go to offensive coordinator at a bigger school. Well, he's at the biggest school you can get as the head coach. So I think he's got it as good as it gets there, and he's making a decent penny doing so. So he's got it good right now.
That coming from Jake Zembiec. Jake, you've been great in answering my questions. Like you said, it's been a while since we've gotten to do this, and I hope we can do this more often. I want to keep you in the game too. So I would love, and I'm thinking this in the moment, and you can feel free to say absolutely not, but we built a relationship years ago, which has provided for this bridge to still be here. And I'm so thankful for it. And like I said, I still remember the messages from your dad and the positivity of that, and just really things he didn't have to send me. And so, I'm looking at the fact that as you learn physical therapy and different pieces of this, I would love to connect with you on the side of that when we could talk about injuries and prevention and maybe, rehab and whatnot. Would love to have you on the show. And if you'd like to, I would love to have you analyze some things and come back and be a part of that. So I'd love to keep you in the game in my own way on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, if you would allow me to do so.
Yeah, man, I think it's cool when you can get perspective from somebody who's, been there and lived it. And I lived it in a different way than most success stories would have. So I'm always happy to share what I got. And, all of us old guys here, we have aches and pains. So if I can ever give you some physical therapy tips, even better.
So final piece here, we call it rapid fire. You've been great with everything and answering my questions and telling your story. Jake Zembiec, once again, Penn State quarterback, alum, took a medical scholarship in 2018, stayed with the team and continued to help them out on the staff, and here with us on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Football studios. Rapid fire. Normally, I put you on the hot seat. You put me on the hot seat. You've answered my questions. You've been awesome with telling your journey. So I'm going to let you put me on the hot seat. A trio of questions. It can be football related or non-football related, but I know nothing of what you're going to ask me. You can ask me anything in the world and I have to answer it. Go ahead.
Oh man. Let's see here. All right, let me start with a broad question. That way I have time to think for more.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Who is your favorite college football team, and why?
Well, I mean, my hometown, Syracuse. So I grew up going to the Dome with my dad, and I fell in love with it. My grandmother always watched. My G mama, my mom's mom, and closest person to me, a fantastic human being, and now she's up in heaven as an angel. And after being almost 101, so yeah, I mean, Syracuse. I grew up around it. It was always a part of my life. It's weird now because the players I watch play are now my friends, and that humbles me every single day and makes me just want to get down on my knees and thank God every second. Like, how did this happen? So I'm very, very connected to Syracuse and love my hometown. But through doing what I do, there's many teams and players and coaches that you start to root for, and I'm now realizing that I got people all over the place that I'm pulling for, and I feel very fortunate and very blessed to get to do what I love and love what I do, and that's connecting me with so many fantastic people that really, you know, you sleep better at night when you know that there's good people out there that are leading and chasing their dreams. So Syracuse is where it started, and it's now turned into a lot of great people and a lot of great places.
Very nice. All right. How fast do you think you could run a 40-yard dash right now?
I will tell you that over the pandemic, I had a lot of personal stuff that was bothering me around the time that the pandemic started. So I was in a place where like I didn't want to be cooped in the house. I wanted to be out. I wanted to do something for myself, and I felt trapped. I needed to think clearly. I wasn't. And so I got frustrated. And then one day I just walked outside, and I was just kind of like talking to God, praying, yelling to myself, like being upset. And I walked. And then the next day I did it again. And then I did 10 days, and then I did 20 days. And I was like, okay, I want to do this in 40 days. And I beat that. And then I want to do this in 80 days, and I beat that. So, I started to really build endurance and stamina. And I started to, just for fun, I'd be out walking, and then all of a sudden I'd be, walking through a neighborhood on concrete, and I'd turn around and I'd start doing back pedals, and I'd do like a DB, backpedaling and up, turning, pretending that there was a ball coming in, jumping. Probably looks crazy to a bunch of people looking outside, but I wanted to test my body because I had got my body into arguably the best shape I've ever been in. And so I would say I definitely need to keep up on it. And I'm happy with what I've done. I do want to do more at this point. But to answer your question, how fast I think I could run a 40, I never trained for it, but probably a heck of a lot faster than I would have in the past. But it's made me appreciate it so much more because it looks easy, but it is not easy. And you can't just set up and run. You have to train your body. And one of the running backs told me, he's like, dude, you could tear your ACL. You could screw up your whole body if you just go out there and try to do it. So I've definitely learned that it's not as easy as it looks on the combine.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'm in the same boat, and I don't ever try to reach top speed because I don't want to know what'll happen.
Yeah.
Last question. How many, going from most recent back as far as you can you name Penn State starting quarterbacks, or how many can you name, starting with the guy who starts now, going back?
Oh my goodness, man. You put me in a place. So, So is there Patterson? Am I right? I think I'm right. And then was that Shea Patterson? No, I'm wrong. No, I'm sorry. It's not Shea. Shea was on a different team. So, wow. This is such a hard question because Penn State is typically not competing with a lot of the schools that I've covered. So I pay a lot of attention to James Franklin and some other guys. I know there's guys that have been on the team like Carl Nassib and whatnot, but quarterback wise, I mean, you mentioned Tyler. I really can't think about a lot of recent quarterbacks, which makes me feel horrible right now. Can you name them?
I could name right now. It's Sean Clifford. Trace McSorley was before him. Christian Hackenberg. I think Matt McGloin was before that.
Christian Hackenberg and McSorley. Those are the ones that I would be able to tell you, because Hackenberg actually played Syracuse at MetLife, and then he went on to the Jets. And then McSorley, I think, had some time with the Ravens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I usually like once they make it to the NFL and I can connect it back that way. But yeah, you're putting me in. Clifford you mentioned, but before you mentioned it, I would not, so I wouldn't want to steal from you, and I'm not looking anything up. But yeah, I mean, I can, once you say them, I'm going, oh yeah, that team, they played for the Jets, they played for the Ravens. Like if you say the names, I remember them once you say them.
Yeah.
So you said, so can you go farther back than Hackenberg or no?
Matt McGloin, I think, was before him.
Yes, and McGloin played for the Giants.
He played all over.
He did. And then I think he played in a different league.
Yeah, he played in the XFL for a bit.
Yeah.
He, before him though, I mean, I know a bunch of guys. Todd Blackledge, um, Michael Robinson, who he hangs out with us a whole bunch there.
Yeah.
I don't know the order though, but yeah.
Well, good question. I think you've shown that you know how to name them off the top of your head. I know how to tell you where they play after. So I do know that. I do know that. I'm like, oh yeah, that guy's a Penn State, that guy's a Penn State. I will say this. My favorite Penn State player of recent history is somebody who played for my Jaguars. And I got to see him play in real time. And then he came to Jacksonville and I finally got to interview him. And he was just sitting in his locker. And one of the last guys, if not the last guy in the locker room, Allen Robinson. So I'm a big fan of what I wanted him to be in Jacksonville. And it was really unfortunate. He got hurt in like the first game of the season, the year that they went to the AFC Championship. So we never got to see exactly what that would have looked like. But Hackenberg and Allen Robinson, I knew them from my, travels in college football. But yeah, you brought me back there with Matt McGloin. You definitely did. So I do remember him, and he was a bigger bodied dude. So definitely, there's hopes for the future that it'll catch on, and Penn State will have some longevity here. Do you think there's anybody on the staff right now on the current team as we speak? Is it a Sean Clifford? I mean, is there somebody that you think could be NFL ready?
I mean, they definitely got a bunch of NFL guys right now. They got a guy named Jahan Dotson who's probably going to go first round this year. He's phenomenal. And the recruiting, Coach Franklin brings in phenomenal recruiting classes every year. So, one of these years, their recruiting class is going to really turn out to be all they were supposed to be. 5-star this, 5-star that. Unfortunately, it doesn't always translate. But one of these years, all that stuff is going to work perfectly, and they're going to have a serious team over there. And we've been good for the past however many years, but I think one of these years they're going to have a legitimate shot to contend.
Well, I think the other part of it is the fact too that like there's guys in high school on their recruiting trail that I'll talk to and I'll interview, and you don't know where they're going to pick. And then when Penn State shows up, it's always a player in it. And one of the guys that, some people might know this name, Micah Parsons, not a too bad player there. So yeah. There's definitely a lot of good that's come out of Penn State. And, I apologize that I didn't know them right off the bat quarterback wise, but I mean, for me, Jake, I always wanted to, as I told you before, I've always wanted to see you succeed. And I wanted you to be a starter out there. I wanted you to go to the NFL. But I'll tell you this, and I mean this with all the fullness in my heart. You said you got a bunch of jerseys. I have a Hall of Fame room in my studio in my office. If you would oblige me, if there's one that you would let go of, I don't even care if it's a practice one, I would be more than happy to have you sign it. And I'll put the Jake Zembiec jersey in my studio as I always intended to, no matter what happened.
Yeah, I would have absolutely done that. Unfortunately, I had about 100 of the same offers before.
Yeah.
And my parents, grandparents in high school all got first dibs. And I kept one for myself. And I have one in Buffalo. I have one in my room, two in my room at home. One of them is a Rose Bowl jersey, which will never leave the case again because that thing's sacred.
Yeah.
And then my grandparents got one. Another one at my parents' house, and my high school has one. So unfortunately, you're going to have to go through either my mom or my grandma, who are going to be harder to convince than me. So
yeah, but I mean, just in the respect of it, it's just the fact that Jake, I mean, from recruitment out of Aquinas to now, I've just always wanted to see you do well and succeed. And to me, you made it to Penn State. To me, you got recruited and they liked you enough. They cared about what you did enough and they believed in you. And so to me, however many downs or didn't happen or did happen, however many games. And I thought that before the injury and everything that went on, you made it to Penn State. And to me, It says a lot about your character. It says a lot about your ability to play. And it says a lot about James Franklin and his staff, how they treated you after the fact. So I'm happy to hear that about Coach Franklin. And, you know, to me, you'll always be a winner, because how many guys, especially out of the state of New York, can say that they got recruited to go to Penn State and got to be a part of that team. So, you know, just know that my thoughts on you have never changed.
I appreciate that a lot, man. It means a lot to me. I've always tried to do it the right way. Felt like I laid a good foundation for recruiting out of Rochester in New York, and you know, I like to think that I help open doors for guys to come after me, which is really cool. And I hope that continues with me training guys and stuff like that. So, you know, my impact will hopefully be bigger than me playing. I like watching other guys play more than me, because they're much more athletic than I was or currently am.
Well, you know, give yourself some credit, and thank you for being a part of this and for being here. And I'd love to have you back, like I said, and focus in on some things that you know in the quarterback world, and as well as physical therapy. Would love to have you back here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Cafe Kubal studios. And as always, Jake, I really do thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully we'll be talking soon.